So we are now looking at 4 separate photos that have been put out there. This is someone who is a subject, a suspect. That's what the FBI calls him, a subject, but essentially a suspect. The person who the morning that Nancy Guthrie was taken walked up onto her front porch. And you see at one point, we thought he was pulling the camera out of the wall. He actually seems to be having grabbed some kind of foliage to cover it if he possibly can. But these are the best pictures that we have right now that give you a sense, even with his mask on, of what this person looks like, what his height was, what his build is. I want to bring in Alex Tabbitt, who is in Tucson, and I know you've spent days in that area, days around that house. Give me your observations as you're seeing these photos and knowing the lay of the land there.
Well, Chris, we're actually just following some breaking news just now. The FBI Director Kash Patel has released 2 additional photos and 2 videos. You might see those on your screen right now. One of those videos shows this subject coming up to the doorbell. As you see, he's wearing gloves. He's wearing a ski mask. You can see that he's armed. It's very similar to what we saw in those original photos that were released by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And then you see him leave the doorstep and head towards the front porch of the home and pick up what appears to be some flowers. Video, you see this subject, a man, we can't say definitively, but he appears to be a man, holding those flowers up towards this next camera. And who knows what he's doing in that moment, but then the video cuts out. That's on top of 2 additional photos, which Kash Patel has also released of this subject. And Chris, I want to show you where this all happened, these new photos, these new videos. Directly behind me is that front door to Nancy Guthrie's home in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona. And you can see from the photos that that archway matches that archway. The garden, I don't know if you can see from this angle, where this subject picked up those flowers is just at the foot of the door. So all of this could be incredibly helpful in the investigation as the Pima County Sheriff's Department and as the FBI continue to ask the public for tips to help find Nancy Guthrie. Chris?
Thank you for that. Keep us posted as you're there on the scene. I do want to say that Savannah Guthrie, the daughter of the woman who was abducted, did post these photos that we have been showing you to her Instagram and said, very simply, we believe she is still alive. Bring her home. The same message that she had last night, where she talked to anybody out there who might have seen something, asking them for their help. While in 2 previous videos, she reached out to the apparent kidnappers to say, we will pay, bring her home. I want to bring in retired FBI agent and criminal profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole. As someone who is experienced in investigations, when you see these photos, what do you see?
Well, what I see is that it's very likely that this person put a lot of thought into what the functionality was going to be of each item that he was wearing. And it does look like it's a male, which is why I use that pronoun, that it was, he may have done, I'll be honest with you, he probably did a dress rehearsal on this. I would also say that based on the type of crime that it is, this is someone who is comfortable being out in the middle of the night, being around residences, dressing up like this to hide his identity. So this is someone who's been in people's homes in the past, doing whatever. And I'm not suggesting that he's a serial kidnapper, but he is somebody that seems to be comfortable going into places that he doesn't own or should not be, whether it's a home or whether it's a business. So, and that comfort level is consistent with actually with the crime of kidnapping. And he knew what to anticipate ahead of time. He knew that there would be cameras there. He knew probably what the layout of the porch was and ultimately the inside of the residence, and he was dressed appropriately. And I'll also say he could not have gone into a convenience store wearing all of that outfit, because it certainly would have sparked people's interest. So he probably had to get dressed, at least in part, in whatever vehicle he arrived in, because going into a Circle K or a 7-Eleven with all that on would have brought him too much attention.
Then does that say to you, if what you see here, and again, I want to remind people that you have great experience as a profiler, that this is someone who didn't just plan it, that this isn't just someone who has experience, but this was very much a targeted crime. Is that what you see here? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I appreciate that. I would say that this does appear to be more targeted than random. Yes, I would at this point have to say that.
So I'm looking at these photos, and obviously I can't see, and no one on television or anybody who's looking at these photos online can see what the FBI, what different agencies are able to do to enhance these photos, not just of the person, not just of the perpetrator, the apparent perpetrator, but also of the surroundings, whatever might be on the street. But the minute they were able to recover these, the minute they were given these, Mary Ellen, from the company that had spent 8 days trying to recover stuff that many people thought by then had already been lost, what kicks into gear? Which parts of the FBI and maybe other federal agencies go to work, and what are they doing right now?
Well, as far as the pictures are concerned, the most important thing is to put them out there to the public, to make sure that any and everyone can see them. And the purpose behind that is there's every possibility that this is not the first time this individual has worn these clothes, and someone that he lives with, someone who knows him, will recognize these clothes, particularly things like the mask and the gloves and even the backpack. If he did do a dress rehearsal ahead of time to make sure everything fit, everything was there, somebody may have witnessed that, someone he lived with. So that's the importance of being able to put that out there. This person may have showed up on other home cameras on other occasions in the past, which were not reported to the police. So again, trying to spark a lot of input from the community if they know this person or if they've seen this person around their area. So that would be the primary. But at the same time, what they're also doing, again, is going back and looking at camera footage in the area to see if this individual has shown up on other people's cameras days, weeks, or even months prior to this abduction.
Let me ask you about your area of particular expertise, which is profiling. Who's the kind of individual who would perpetrate this kind of crime?
Well, in a kidnapping case, the kidnapping itself is a crime of violence. And it requires some predatory behavior ahead of time. Unfortunately, predatory means hunting human being behavior, which is where the pre-planning and the coming to the residence ahead of time and checking it out, scoping it out, maybe getting into the residence, that would fall under the title of predatory behavior. This is with this kind of planning that's invested in these crimes. The offender has a chance to think about the impact on the victim and the victim's family, and it's still okay with that person to move forward with the crime. So kidnapping tends to be a very cold-blooded crime without empathy for the victims and the family, which really goes to the personality, which is why you heard several different statements to the public, one of which was appealing, we need help. The other was, this is what we intend to do. One appeal was very transactional, which would have appealed to someone that has these personality traits. The other was very emotional, which would appeal to someone that might be living with this individual, someone that might be also intimidated or victimized by this individual, say someone in a domestic violence situation. So that's why you saw the two types of appeals that were made to the public. And this also, in kidnapping, they tend to be crimes of committed by people that are fairly arrogant and someone that would be very grandiose in their thinking, that would be thinks that they could successfully carry it out. And in fact, this is the kidnapper. He did successfully carry it out. So those are just some personality traits that seem to be consistent with someone that would commit a crime of kidnapping like this.
We now have video, and we are showing you this video that was just released. Let's take a look. Let's let it play. So first covering the Ring camera with his fist. Then there's a second piece of video that, and we saw in the still photo, apparently taking some kind of foliage or something and putting it up toward the camera itself. This is important, though, because this also shows, right, the backpack. Anything that looks identifiable, or if in particular, there are a series of things that someone would say, I know someone who has a jacket like that, who has a backpack of that size. The straps are identifiable. They're not all one color. The different things that people might see as they're looking to really just answer the appeal that has come out from the family, from our dear friend Savannah, and just begging people, if you think you know something, if you think you see something.